Don't check.
Hey scrappers, it's Tom from the iScrap app, and today is Wednesday, which means it's our time for our weekly report on YouTube and on Facebook. What are we going to talk about today? Market news, market updates, what you should expect at your scrapyard, and how you can make more money with your scrap. Follow me, let's go talk scrap. Have questions about scrap? Time to ask them now. Let's go. Hi Scrappers, Tom from the iScrap app, and today is Wednesday, May 12th, 2021, and we hope that you are doing well, scrapping often, and of course, enjoying these all-time high copper prices. But before we get to those copper prices, let's talk about a couple of other things that we'd like to do from week to week. First off, I'd like to shout out to my dad, who I know is watching this, so Dad, hope you're enjoying this. Second, if you want more tips on the scrap metal industry, every single week here at the iScrap app, if you are a Patreon supporter, you would be getting those tips. Now, what does that include? That includes 3 to 4 weekly alerts. It includes a Friday update and recap of what happened in the markets during the week, different news articles that we found incredibly helpful and really helped teach us what's going on with the market. So by becoming a Patreon supporter, those are some of the things that are going to help you learn more about the scrap markets along the way. So we would love for you to join and to become a Patreon supporter today. Now, here we are. Over the last 7 business days, there have been so many different events going on in the overall economy that have influenced the copper prices, as well as some of the other markets that we're going to talk about. One market that we would like to lead off with is actually the tin market. And no, I'm not talking about light iron. I'm talking about solder or babbitt. Now, tin is a different type of a metal. The proper shortcut for it on the periodic table is SN. And tin can be used in all types of different welding and electronic components. All the different capacitors, the different semiconductor chips, all of these are soldered to the circuit boards by using tin solder. Now, there are different grades of tin. There's 50-50, 70-30, 80-20, 95-5, 100% tin. And generally, the tin is going to be combined with something like antimony, lead, sometimes bismuth, or some other type of application. And in rare occasions, you might actually find a silver solder that does contain, you guessed it, silver. So by finding a good scrapyard or using the iScrap app and selling directly to the team at Rockaway Recycling, which will pay for shipping through the mail, the different solders that you are looking to sell are really difficult to learn about. But with such a high demand right now for electronics, for the semiconductor industry, and for the overall industry as a whole, we've really seen these tin prices climbing very, very high, and it might be something that you might kind of scrap on the side, you save it, you put in a bucket, and now might be as good a time as ever to be able to get ready to sell it. Looks like we have a question, so let's get right to it.
So speaking of electronics, are electronics, printers, and computers worth recycling?
Sure. So it's a great question that we were asked. Electronics such as printers and computers and laptops, of course they're worth recycling, but you have to think about who and how you're going to be recycling these items. Now, some scrapyards will not take any type of electronic. You're probably going to want to work with an R2 certified recycler who goes through a very strenuous process, such as Rockaway Recycling has done, to go through the R2 process and also have multiple ISO certifications. Now, printers, while they have electronic components inside, such as a low-grade circuit board, they're mostly plastic and steel, and not all scrapyards are going to buy these or even take them from you. But by working with a R2 certified recycler, you're going to be able to learn about the electronics. And here at the iScrap app, we have blogs and videos that will teach you about the different electronics and how you can make more money with them. Now, one piece of advice that we always like to give to people is to take a lot of these apart at a time. With electronics like laptops or towers, they have little screws that generally are different than Phillips head or flathead. They have a star-shaped screw, and that star shape, you need a special kit to be able to take them apart. And when you're taking one apart at a time, it doesn't make as much sense as when it does to save 10 or 12 of these units. This way you set up a bit of an assembly line and can take them apart one piece at a time and have the right tool for the right job. It just makes it a little easier. Now, going off of the tin solder, we've seen such high prices in the markets overall. There's a couple of other things that we want to touch on right now. On the steel side of things, we have seen the price of iron ore increasing again, even though it's taken a bit of a hiatus over the last couple of months. 2 weeks in a row, iron ore prices have upticked, and that uptick has led to an increased pricing in the scrap metal market. We've seen prices for steel rise between $20 and $30 per ton over the last 7 business days. And the news says that going into June, after Memorial Day weekend, we could see another uptick of $15 to $20 on top of the increase that we've already seen in the month of May, which really is the first increases that we've seen since February. Don't forget, we talked about this the last quarter of 2020. Those steel prices had such a nice increased market. There was so much supply that came into the mills and the export market that those prices did drop down going into February, March, and then April. Now here we are in May with a nice rebound of the markets. Prices have been good, and we've seen some reported prices for items like light iron between $110 and $170 per ton. Now, in the background, while you use the iScrap app, watch our videos, read our blogs, and of course, use all the resources that we have to help you make more money with your scrap, we have been working diligently on our newest version of the iScrap app, which we're coining 2.0. In our new version that is slated to come out the first or second week of July, we're going to have it much quicker for you to update your prices, to report different prices, to find scrapyards in the area, to sell catalytic converters to rrcats.com, or to utilize the app on your phone to be able to learn more about the markets, capture some of your prices, track some of your prices, and of course, use it as another tool like you would a magnet or a Sawzall to make more money with your scrap. We have another question that I'd like to answer now.
Are you recycling solder dross?
So solder dross is something that we're recycling at Rockaway Recycling. And if you go to rrprices.com, you'll be able to see some basic prices for different dross that's out there. Now, there are so many different types of drippings that are out there from the dross machines. We generally like to use our approved XRF that gives us the ability to know what grade of solder that you have, 60-40, 70-30, etc., like we spoke about before. Now, if you're looking to learn more about the solder market or the prices here, you can always reach out to us through our messaging on Facebook, our website info@iscrapapp.com, our email, or you can just tweet us or send us an Instagram post and we'll make sure, message, and we'll make sure to get you the answer and help you learn how to sell your solder so you can make more money with it. Now, of course, drum roll, please. Here we are. Let's talk about the all-time high price of copper. Last week, we saw the markets really escalate, and then a couple of days ago, we saw the markets Monday morning, believe it or not, the market shot up 12 cents. I was up around 4 o'clock in the morning. The market was up 6 or 7 cents. Around 6:30, the market was up 12 cents. By the time I kind of sat down and things really started to trade, between 8 and 9 o'clock, we saw the market go up 12 cents, and then it started to tick its way down, where, believe it or not, at one point during the day on Monday, after having the market up 12.5 cents earlier before the stock market opened, we saw the market drop 6 cents. So we're talking about almost a 20-cent swing in one day. Now, why is that? These copper prices being so high are going to have massive variations and fluctuations because they're just going to be under a much larger magnifying glass. Think about it. If you had a 1% swing with copper prices at $3, you're going to have let's increase it. A 5% swing with copper prices at $3 per pound, that means you're going to have a 15-cent upswing or downswing. At $4 per pound, that same 5% becomes a 20-cent swing up or down. When you add another 70 cents to that, you're going to add another 3.5 cent swing. So you're going to have that 5% now in the 23.5% range of massive swings. And these won't be very surprising, but being used to smaller market swings as we were, especially throughout 2020 leading into the fourth quarter, these are really big swings that are not going to be going anywhere, even though we do have the possibility of hitting $5 per pound on the trading side of copper, which I thought it was going to do yesterday after seeing that initial uptick in the market. But it seems right now we've hit a bit of a ceiling over the last few days, with copper prices trading between 470 and 480. The good thing, people have been reporting through the iScrap app the prices that they've been receiving. 415 for Bear Bright, 422, 405, 397, really strong market prices. And if you go to the iScrapApp.com every day, not only can you see the national price averages, but you can also use the free app on your iPhones or your Droids to be able to see some of those prices and see how they update every single day to give you the different market ups and downs. And it looks like we have a question that I'd like to answer now.
Andrew asked, is copper-coated steel worth anything?
Yeah, sure, it's worth steel. Copper coated on top of steel, unless you have thousands, if not tons of weight, is not going to be a heavy uptick. So when you have copper coated materials such as coax cable, which is one of really good examples of things that you would find often, or a lightning rod from a house, copper coated on top of steel, yes, there's copper there, but it's almost like talking about a copper penny today. You have copper coated on top of zinc, and the value of the copper is only 2 to 3% of the overall weight. So that method applies to those lightning rods, applies to things like coax, even solid core helix, which has copper coated on aluminum on the inside. Even though copper prices are high, there's enough of a supply out there from raw goods like copper pipe, Bear Bright, and insulated copper wires, where recyclers and refiners have not gotten so desperate that they're looking to really have an uptick on the copper clad market right now, especially when you have other things heating up the way that they have. Now, here at the iScrap app, we're always following the markets, talking to different people. And one of the things that I've seen throughout all of 2021 is exactly what you're about to guess: inconsistency. If you asked me 4 months ago, would the market rise over $1 per pound? I would say, yeah, sure, over the next 2 years, I could see the market increasing $1 per pound. Fast forward 4 months, I did not see this coming. And one thing that we've tried to tell people, not only here at Rockaway Recycling, but also through the iScrap app network, whether it's through our social media or our general advice, is when you have things ready, sell them. The more items that you touch, the more times you touch something, the more it costs you. Have you ever figured out what it costs you to move material per pound? I know that at my scrapyard, we end up paying, it's about 3 to 7 cents per pound for processing fees, whether it's picking up steel with the excavator and moving it with the truck, whether it's cutting the copper, whether it's stripping the wire, or whether it's just driving the forklift. Things have costs. Have you ever done a cost analysis on what your time is worth? We talk about it all the time when people say, is it worth my time to take a computer apart? Is it worth my time to strip Romex wire? Well, what is your time worth? $10 an hour, $5 an hour, $100 an hour? Hey, at $100 an hour, it might not be worth your time to strip Romex. Sell it like it is and let the scrapyard make their cut. But if you have nothing else to do, who cares what your going rate is? Making money is making money, and that's what we talk about all the time. Hustling, hustling, hustling. The early bird gets the worm, and the early scrapper finds the material to be able to process and sell. And sometimes touching things and leaving a few extra dollars on the table is not the worst thing in the world, and I'll give you an example of that right now. Let's say you're cleaning out a machine shop and you find an old drill press. Yes, you and I both know that those old pieces of equipment are not going to break because that's not how they were built years ago. But you have to say to yourself, is it worth me reselling this old drill press for $50 or $100 when I have to load it in my truck, unload it at my house, post a picture online, wait, negotiate and haggle back and forth, help someone load it onto their truck, deliver it somewhere? Is the orange worth the squeeze? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And the same thing goes for scrap. Not all scrap metal is worth processing. Not all scrap metal is worth your time to take apart. But there are things like air conditioning units, computer towers, and then other copper-bearing items that are worth your time. And these are the things that you should really look at closely when you're trying to figure out how to make more money with your scrap. Let's answer another question.
William asked, what's the taboo around the granulator?
Oh, well, the granulators are interesting pieces of equipment. If you own one and have been up and running for a few years, you're probably loving these copper markets, because I've talked to a couple of large copper buyers who have always said that unless copper was consistently over $4 a pound, using a granulator is never a good option. But for those of you that don't know what granulators are, imagine a piece of Cat5 wire, your basic wire that you use to connect to the internet. Granulators will take this material, they'll take it and they'll pound it into really flat pieces. At that point, when it is really flat, it'll go up the conveyor belt and it will get shredded. During that shredding process, just like they shred steel, or you could shred paper at your house, when the granulated copper goes through the processor, the granulation kind of happens where it shreds it, and different air waves will move the material into different directions. Air will push the plastic one way, but the denser copper will stay on the conveyor belt and be pushed into another avenue. Now, most of the times, the people that I know that own granulators will put their material through the granulating system multiple times to ensure that there's no plastic inside. But one thing that wire choppers have to watch out for is having mixed material in with their copper. You've probably seen us post pictures in the past of granulated copper, or you've probably gone to our scrap metal recycling group on Facebook where you've seen it as well. When you have a #1 copper mixed with a #2 copper, they shred the pieces into small pieces, hammer them together, split them apart. When you have small bits of #1 mixed with #2, it's almost the definition of pulling a needle out of a haystack. Even if you had a piece of copper that was 2 feet long that got mixed in with the wrong material, that piece would have #2 pieces all mixed throughout the copper chop, and that's a problem that different chopping facilities have. Hopefully that answered your question, and we have another question to answer now.
I have a guy that melts his copper, brass, and aluminum into bars. Do yards have a problem with this?
Yeah, what a bad idea. Please don't melt your material into ingots. Yeah, it's fun, but if you really want to see it done, go to YouTube and watch someone else do it. Because when you melt your materials, aluminum, copper, brass, whatever it is, in a home kiln, right, or a home furnace, a home melting pot, you have your propane set up, and you have your blowtorch going, and you have your pot with all the copper going inside. As a scrapyard owner, when we have had homemade ingots brought to us, we always buy them as cheap as possible. Even when we use the shear and cut them in half, I don't know what impurities are mixed in with that copper. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have a home kiln, you take it and you heat that clay pot up really, really hot. You have a bunch of copper pipe, and you think that you have successfully cut off all of the soldered ends and all of the painted ends. Well, did you go inside the copper? Did you clean it out? What happens if there's debris in there? What happens if it was used for some type of a sewer line and there was stinky debris in there? Well, when you melt all of these things together with clean and dirty mixed together, how does a scrapyard know what that mix is? How are they going to trust you if they're not doing it themselves because they didn't know what your quality control is. And these are different things that you want to be able to look for. Now listen, here at the iScrap app, not only are we doing these weekly reports, on Sundays we like to give price reports out, and then we also have our podcast, Scrapulator, sharing scrap stories about jobs that I've done. We're getting ready to start the interviewing process with multiple different people in all walks of the scrap metal life. And we also have our newsletter that you can sign up for. Now, we'll post a link at the end of this video so you can see the newsletter, put your email on there, and get our alerts. Not only will you get notifications on when we're doing our live sessions, we'll give you pricing notifications, we'll give you new material notifications if we see materials getting sorted separately. And then once in a while, when you have crazy metal price swings, we'll even send you pricing alerts so you know that the market is moving in any type of a way, up or down. Now, here at the iScrap app, our job is to help you make more money with your scrap. Let us know what we can do to share more information with you. And if you're looking for more information about anything from rrcats.com, buying catalytic converters nationwide, if you're looking for more additional tips or tricks throughout the week, you can become a Patreon supporter. And with our new iScrap app 2.0 coming out in early July, we're so excited for you to be able to feel it, use it, and process it, because it was your ideas that gave us the ability to put this new 2.0 together. Now, by signing up for the newsletter, you'll be in the know of what's going on with the markets, what's going on with the team here at the iScrap app, and fun alerts and announcements that we have that are related to the scrap industry, because again, our job is to help you make more money with your scrap. Scrappers, this is Tom from the iScrap app, and today is Wednesday, May 12th, 2021. We appreciate you tuning in. We look forward to hearing your stories, love seeing your posts, and until next week, Scrappers, I'll scrap you later.